Welcome back to another edition of the Premier Investments and Wealth Management Financial Program. My name is Doug Wagner. I love doing this job with these guys. This is so fun. PremierIWM.com is the website. Before I introduce you to the three gentlemen who are seated with me here today, I want you to go to the website, PremierIWM.com, whether it's on your phone, your tablet, or maybe your laptop, even if you're at the desktop. If you've got a Commodore 64 and it goes, go ahead and do that too. You might not be able to get on there, but any other way, PremierIWM.com. Answer just a couple of questions. They will provide for you what's called a one-page Premier Vision document. Do you know if you're ready for retirement? Well, if you're like, 75% of the people in the United States, you probably don't. They can help you figure that out. If you're preparing for your retirement, you want to be able to retire where you want, when you want, how you want, preparing for your kids' financial future as far as education or leaving a legacy, or maybe you want a second home, maybe a lake house or a little hunting cabin, something like that. Let Premier Investments and Wealth Management help you prepare for that future. PremierIWM.com is the website. Answer those questions. Also, you can call for an appointment. The number is 800-383-6590. With Premier Investments and Wealth Management, recently named Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. Introducing around the table with me, he's a new sheriff in town. He's Vice President of Wealth Advisor with Premier Investments and Wealth Management. How you doing, Elias?
I'm doing great, Doug. How are you?
Good. This is a new, interesting setup.
Setup, yep.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to go to some touchdown playbacks or something like that.
Sure.
And,
New setup, same great content for
yeah,
everyone.
Ooh, I like that.
Yep.
That should be the tagline. Also with us today is another wealth advisor with over 30 years of experience this time in the investment industry. He is Jonas Everett.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We have a generation gap here going. Elias has no idea what a Commodore 64 is. So I might have to explain to him after the radio show.
I will.
I will Google it.
This is the first video episode I've done with you in the room.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
I know.
All the people can see what we look like.
It's remarkable.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Always a good thing.
Okay.
Always a good thing. And finally, at the end of the table, he's the president of Premier Investments and Wealth Management. He's a wealth advisor as well as an accredited investment fiduciary. Over 21 years of experience in the investment industry. It's the big kahuna, Roger Abel.
Thank you for the grand entrance again, Doug. I will make a comment about the age gap.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask Jonas, was the internet around when you got married?
It was. It was.
Elias asked me if the internet was around when I got married one time. I'm like,
Legitimate
I'm not
question.
like 70.
Legitimate question.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was in high school with that Commodore 64 that my brother had handed off to me. It was just something that he played with and used. It had Oregon Trail and it had the dial-up service that you had to call the thing and then you put the cradle in the receiver. You ever see that? You ever see how we had to connect?
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, I do know what dial-up
Well,
internet
yeah, but
is.
you put the receiver in
barely.
there. It's like coconuts, man. You just sit there and clap.
How optimistic did Oregon Trail make us? There was 20 of us, and 16 got wiped out by the flu, and just 4 left. And
exactly.
What a way to start your 6th grade journey,
I know. If only we had the internet back then like we do now, because now you can download a brand new free copy of a guide at PremierIWM.com. It's the Rothification and Your Retirement. Yes, they have coined a new word, Rothification, and it's going to be in the dictionary. I'm sure Merriam-Webster or somebody like that will pick it up this next year. Let's talk a little bit about that because we need to find out if a Roth strategy is right for you. What are some of the things that we need to be looking at as far as, what you're looking at as far as wealth advisors and advising the folks who are your clients and customers?
I think part of the reason we came out with that guide is we have a lot of customers who ask us about, should I do a Roth? Shouldn't I do a Roth? And that's kind of what today's show's about, is determining whether this is right for you and some of the things to look at. But I think the idea behind doing a Roth in its purest form is that we know what a tax code is today. Mm-hmm. We know what today's tax code is. Unfortunately, we don't know what the future of tax rates are.
Right.
And the beauty of a Roth IRA is it's the only known tax code in America. It's 0 once you go there.
Okay.
And really what your current tax rate is, projected against your future tax rate can help answer questions as to whether you do this. But also you have to ask yourself the question, do I believe taxes will be higher in the future than they are today? And every time we ask people that, the answer is we believe they will be higher.
Yeah.
And reasons they could be higher. At some point, you have to tackle the $37 trillion problem. And
Tick, 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 tick.
yeah, and the way the government raises revenue is through taxes, and that's really the only way to pay it. So I think the idea is that in the future, I would expect that brackets are higher for what segment of the working class, I don't know, but I would expect them to be higher in the future.
Yeah. And you've also got the social spending that just cannot undo itself right now unless they really get in. And it's the third rail, and hardly anybody ever wants to grab a hold of that. So that's interesting. So what you're saying is that if you have a temporarily low income year, you may benefit the most from a Roth contribution or conversion.
Well, yeah. So I actually have a customer, she lost her job last year. So their income went down quite a bit, substantially. So they used that as an opportunity to convert a bunch of IRA assets in 2024 and then more in 2025 because they had a lot lower income tax bracket. So it's kind of a good way to turn a bad situation into a good one sometimes. Another time we see, the rush to conversions are when markets get chaotic and you see the account value go down 10, 15, 20%.
Right.
You'll see people take advantage of that as a time to convert to.
Gotcha. Premier Investments and Wealth Management at premieriwm.com. Head over there today. Lots of downloadable information, including what we're talking about today, Rothification and Your Retirement. It's a brand new free copy of their guide at premieriwm.com. Premier Investments and Wealth Management, named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. Let's go over to Elias now, and we're going to take these next two because they seem to me to be so similar as far as comparing a Roth IRA versus a traditional and then a Roth 401k versus a traditional. I'm going to start off by saying I had no clue there was a Roth 401k.
So that's becoming more popular as far as 401k plans offering Roth as an option.
Okay.
And here's the two basic, we'll just talk through the two basic differences. So whether it's an IRA account or a 401k account, there's going to be different contribution limits. But any of your pre-tax contributions may be tax deductible depending on income from a traditional IRA or 401k. Those withdrawals and retirement will be taxed ordinary income, where Roth, those contributions are made after tax, and then withdrawals are tax-free in retirement. And I think the rise in popularity for Roth 401k is there are a lot of investors out there that do want that option.
Okay.
And especially if you think about, to piggyback on some of the things Roger was just talking about, if I'm a young investor and I have a really long time horizon, well, I can really start to make an argument that I want as much Roth dollars as possible, and I'm going to forego some tax deduction in this year for the trade-off of the long-term tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals as well. And so the more we see, and the other nice thing with Roth 401k being added in is there's not the same income limits as far as direct contributions. So if you're working somewhere, there's no phase out on your income.
Okay.
Right. So sometimes it is maybe the best opportunity for a client to get a lot of money socked away into a Roth account.
So it's very similar the way that these are treated. When we say Roth IRA versus traditional and then a Roth 401k versus a traditional 401k, I mean, it's like
they're exactly the same other than the contribution limits.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Premier Investments and Wealth Management. My name is Doug Wagner. I'm here with Elias Randall. At the end of the table is the big kahuna, Roger Abel. Also with us today is Jonas Everett. Let's talk a little bit about that time horizon upon retirement. These are some of the things you need to think about if figuring out if a Roth strategy is correct for you.
You really do. If you have a longer time horizon, one of the things about obviously a Roth IRA strategy or a Roth 401k strategy is you have the compound interest. And ultimately, you have the younger people in their 20s and 30s. You have so many years of compound interest. And what I like about the Roth IRA, just in general, it's not in the outline. Working with people that have so much money in their 401ks, there's a term I've been throwing around that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. People just do not want to touch their taxable accounts. They don't want to spend the money in their taxable accounts. If we can get more people in their 20s and 30s to do Roth IRAs, maybe they can actually start touching that, because there's no taxes on that, and it compounds without any taxes at all. So I think that this is a great opportunity for a lot more people to enjoy their money as well.
Well, I think that's a good point, that people don't want to pay taxes, whether it's now or later. But later in life, as the account value gets larger, if it was all Roth, someone had all a Roth 401k, I think you're right. They'd be much more likely to say, well, this is generating 4% in dividends a year. So on my $1 million, I get $40,000 of tax-free income a year. I have a guess they would actually spend that, where if they went and pulled 4% out of their 401k and had to pay tax, like, no, I don't want to pay the tax on it, which really kind of lends itself to the next problem is if you don't take it out and it's a traditional 401k, you just compound your problem.
Okay.
Because you're going to hit your RMD phase at some point.
Yeah. We've got a couple minutes for the break, so go ahead and hit the RMDs and talk about required minimum distributions and how that figures into the Rothification of your accounts.
Well, you will be forced at some point between the age of 73 and 75, depending upon when you were born, you will be forced out of a 401k plan, traditional, to take money out, whether you like it or not, because the government's ready to get their money. If you kind of embrace this Roth strategy, you're able to avoid that. With a Roth 401k, Roth IRA, there's no required minimum distributions that have to come out. And, we're going to talk about some other adverse things down the road that a lot of income in retirement can do to you. And I think everybody at this table would agree that most people would like more control over what their taxable income is versus less. And that's really what Roth does. It gives you a lot of flexibility, gives you the ability to determine where you're going to take money from versus just being forced to take it from a taxable account.
Gotcha. We're talking about the Rothification of your retirement accounts. And it's something, again, this is one of these words that it's the first time I'm hearing it. They may have just coined it. I'm not sure. Premier Investments in Wealth Management, here for you, not only physically, but also on the web. They're open 24 hours a day at premieriwm.com. That's the website. They were recently named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams. You can find out more about them at premieriwm.com. Download a free copy of their new guide, Rothification in Your Retirement. Also, while you're there, just answer a few questions. They will, if you click Get Started once you hit the website, click Get Started. They'll ask you a few questions. They hold the answers in confidence. They'll produce for you a one-page Premier Vision document. And what that is sort of your roadmap. It's very graphically oriented. It's got short-term, medium-term, long-term goals for you, and also puts in there exactly what you anticipate your goals to be. What do you want to do with the money? Is this about retirement? Is this about your kids' education? Whatever it is that you're trying to do, the sooner you get in touch with Premier Investments and Wealth Management, the better off you and your legacy is going to be. PremierIWM.com is the website. Again, the phone number, if you're going to call and make an appointment, is 800-383-6590. That's 800-383-6590. Let's move on to the next portion of the Rothification of your retirement accounts. And we're going to talk a little bit about Medicare premiums and tax planning. This is sort of, we're getting in the weeds here for some people. And this is where the financial specialists take care of business and allow their customers and clients just sort of say, all right, I've got the 30,000-foot view because you're down in the weeds with it.
Well, in your Medicare premiums, otherwise known as the IRMA adjustment, when it's coming in regards to tax planning, this can kind of be an area that's almost a little bit of a surprise. And, the Roth this is really more about Roth conversions when we consider this. And there's a lot of content out there on the web, YouTube, Reels, really trying to convince retired people that Roth conversions are a good strategy. And in general, could they be? Yeah, they absolutely could be. But there also could be a surprise that comes with that, where if you've now converted so much that your income then is in a bracket that pushes up your Medicare premiums, you may have some hidden cost.
Yeah.
Right? Now you're paying more for Medicare. There's a 2-year look back on that. So this year it's 2025, so your premiums are based on your income in 2023. So those are things that you should consider, right? Because if you're doing it to save on tax, but then you're causing yourself
A taxable situation.
yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's more premium, but it's still a cost.
Yeah, it's the in effect
in concept,
tax.
it's
Right.
another tax.
Right.
Well, you may not really be accomplishing any sort of tax savings. So, and it's not. I'm not here to say that that's a reason to do it or a reason not to do it, but
Right.
it is a consideration people need to think about before executing a strategy around converting pre-tax dollars to Roth.
It is. Go ahead.
Well, I think the thing to recognize is that when you're on the internet looking for this stuff, it's just blanket advice.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's tailored to your situation. And the older you get, the less benefit you get from a Roth. Meaning if you're starting a Roth IRA at 60 and you're retiring at 65 and you're going to pull money from it, there's very little benefit to doing it. You know, we've talked on this show a lot that the Roth IRA benefits a couple of people the most. Young savers who have a really long time horizon to let this money compound and grow tax-free, but then also those looking to transfer wealth. So it becomes a wealth management tool to transfer wealth to the next generation as well. I think one other thing about IRMA is it's not just conversions. When we talk about the IRMA, it could be because you have an exorbitantly large required minimum distribution and you might be there forever. So some of the Roth conversion stuff needs to happen earlier on in the planning phase, not really when you're retired.
Right. Okay. That does make sense. And one of the things about this, Joan, is this is really critical, is that if you have a professional who's in your corner, like when you work with a wealth advisor at Premier Investments in Wealth Management, is one of the things they get to worry about and they get to handle. You get to handle. You get to worry about it. Well, okay, you hand it off to Mark, and Mark worries about it and gets that handled.
Yeah, a lot of our customers are worried about their kids and their kids' taxes too, and that's why a Roth IRA is really a nice estate planning tool, because we get mentioned a lot that, hey, my kids are making more money than I am, and I don't want to leave them a tax burden. There is a newer 10-year rule out, too, for inherited IRAs now, where beneficiaries have to exhaust the entire balance of an IRA over a 10-year period of time. If your kids are making more money than you have ever made, this could be a big tax burden for the kids. So, again, nudging people in that direction, like Roger said, at a younger age to start doing these Roth contributions and conversions.
That's really interesting. So there's like literally forcing them to spend through, just burn through that money.
Well, not burn through, withdrawal from the IRA.
Okay.
So this changed with the Secure Act 2-3 years ago. You used to be able to spread it out over your lifetime.
Okay.
All the IRS says now, whether it's a Roth or a traditional IRA that you inherit, you have to pull it all out within 10 years. Doesn't mean you have to spend it. We have plenty of people that take the money, reinvest it in a non-retirement account, and just pay the tax.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you have to rip through it.
Okay.
But you do have to get it out of the tax benefited account.
Gotcha. And that leads to the next portion of this, Roger Abel, when we talk about Roth conversions and how timing is everything. And this is another one of those things where if it's like diagnosing yourself with Dr. Google, it doesn't work that well. If you have issues where you're wanting to do a conversion or something like this and you don't have a professional in your corner, it can be very difficult at times.
You could end up making a conversion that costs you a lot of money in the future.
It's an outcome.
And it's an outcome. It's not optimal. So a couple things if you're considering doing Roth conversions. You should work with a team, which includes your CPA or tax planner, as well as a financial advisor. I will caution people on just taking what the CPA says. The CPA is only going to look at it from a tax standpoint. They're not going to look at it from IRMA and some of these other situations. And we've had this happen with clients where, hey, Mr. Client, you should convert $500,000. Then we have to walk them back a little bit because we show them what that's going to do to their Medicare tax. They're like,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure it's really worth doing that where I'm at in my life. So timing kind of is everything with Roth. There's a couple of times you should do this. One, when you're young. Like when you're young, you should be converting as much to Roth as you can if you haven't. You know, what's not Roth? If you have an employer, you have a 401k, and you're 25 and you've always done Roth 401k, you still have traditional dollars because the employer does not match to the Roth. The employer matches to the traditional 401k. So you could be converting that all along the way.
Okay.
So when you're young, we want to convert. If there's big market drops and you know you're going to do a conversion, convert. A third thing is, even before you retire or when you're retired, look to max out your tax bracket. So if you have a year where, I'll give a good example. You have someone who retires at 62.
Yeah.
Okay. They have a pot of money saved up. They're not going to be pulling any money out of their 401k. They're not going to have really any taxable income for a couple of years. May make sense to max out that 12% tax bracket and do some large conversions just so we already have it out of the IRA into the Roth. They didn't really pay a whole lot of tax on the money.
And this is something that, I mean, is really critical because, again, you could really screw things up if you make a mistake on this. Let's talk a little bit again because you brought up IRMA before. Explain what that is and talk about the hidden costs of conversions, if you would, Elias.
Well, we've been touching on these, but the hidden costs are going to be, could push you into a higher tax bracket. You could have increased Medicare premiums, and it can reduce your eligibility of tax credits or deductions. And I think to add on a little bit, so those are the hidden costs. But then when we were just talking about, like, actually, if you do decide to do it, I actually had a meeting recently with someone that came in and they wanted to execute Roth conversions, and they just needed a little more education on how it fits into their situation.
Okay.
Because what they were doing was they were doing conversions to save on tax, but then they were taking all of their monthly distributions from their Roth account. So literally no time to just leave the money in there and let it be invested and grow. So, you know, it's also understanding that these decisions or this conversation, it's a long-term decision.
Yeah.
And it's not just as simple as, oh, I converted, so I'm going to save money on tax, right? And the example I just described, that person was triggering taxes, but then taking the money out and spending it. Well, just take it from your IRA account.
And it's subject to a 5-year rule on a conversion anyway. Every time you convert, you have to wait 5 years to take out your basis you can take out, but all the gains, that's all subject to penalty and tax. You pull it out before the 5-year window. And a lot of people don't realize that. We've had a lot of individual clients who've watched videos. I have to convert all of my 401k today. We're like, well, but you're going to take money out of it in 2 years. Why would you convert it all today? Well, so-and-so told me on this TikTok or YouTube video that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never a good idea to get your...
Only ours.
Yeah.
Ours only get good information out there.
Well, because you're real people that people can get in touch with you by going to premieriwm.com. Very easy. Premieriwm.com. Click Get Started. Just answer a few questions, and they'll provide for you a one-page Premier Vision document. And you can have these questions answered by them because they'll take the time. They give you a free, no-obligation consultation where they literally will hand you that document and say, it's up to you if you want to continue with this or if you don't want to. I'm going to think you probably will. I know I have. But for you, it makes it easy because you've got wealth advisors who are here who have taken the time to your fingerprint of a financial future on that one-page Premier Vision document. PremierIWM.com. That's the website again. Head over there, click on Get Started, just answer those few questions. While you're there, download a free copy of their new guide, Rothification and Your Retirement. You can also request an appointment online at PremierIWM.com, or you can call 319-363-3811. Continuing on with our conversation about the Rothification of your retirement, I wanted to go back over, Roger, to you, and or actually go over to you, Jonas, and talk about contribution limits and income restrictions, because it's important to have a good understanding of what you can and cannot do, and the buckets of money and how much have to go in and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are limits to your Roth IRA contributions. If you're under 50, that's $7,000 for 2025. It's phased out for incomes of $150,000 to $165,000 for singles, $236,000 to $246,000 for couples. Ultimately, if you look at the, there's no income limits for the Roth 401k. But if you look at this, Doug, at any age, again, back to the age brackets of 20s and 30s, at Premier Investments and Wealth Management, we don't have account minimums. We don't request that people have $1 million before they work with us. Mm-hmm. It's very delightful for me to start a young person on at $50 a month just in a Roth IRA contribution, because I know with the value of compound interest that's very well. And then if you look at people in their 40s and 50s that have done a good job with an emergency fund, over and above that second spare tire, that extra spare cash that we talk about, I have my customers write down two numbers, 0% and then 4%. Mm-hmm. Well, the 0% is what cash is paying. Yeah. So if you have too much money in cash and you haven't done your Roth IRA contributions, then you could just at the no-brainer level, you could just go out and buy a 4% CD in a Roth. And that's a lot better than making 0%, and you don't have any taxes on that 4%. So a lot of different strategies that we can do. But again, for people in their 40s and 50s that have done a good job saving money and have money over and above their emergency fund, I think Roth IRA contributions are a good strategy.
You made a point that you could just buy a CD. One of the things that we didn't lay out anywhere in here is I think a lot of people view a Roth IRA as an investment. Like they actually don't know what a Roth IRA is. Okay. It's the tax code. Yeah. Right? You can buy any investment that's offered through an exchange, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, CDs. You can buy that in a Roth IRA, but a lot of times people ask, well, how much is the Roth IRA going to return versus my 401k? Well, it depends on what you buy, but potentially exactly the same amount if you bought exactly the same investment at the same time. So I think it's good to bring that to light, that you could have a really safe Roth IRA if you wanted to and still get tax-free income from it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, the investments are available regardless of the type of account.
Right.
Right. Like there's the account doesn't dictate what you can purchase.
But a lot of people think that. They think it has different investments. When you hear Roth IRA, traditional IRA, 401k, Roth 401k, those are all tax codes. In fact, Roth IRA was, I think, named after the senator who proposed this.
Yeah, of Delaware.
It was, yeah.
There you go. That's how it became Roth. That's his tax code that he got enacted into legislation. Here's the thing about this. This is all relatively new. Roth IRAs have only been around for 2.5 decades. It's not like they've been around for 100 years. It's a relatively new product, or a relatively new tax code, not product.
And that's the interesting thing, too, is where you put that, is because for a lot of people who are on the outside looking in, you know what? They do their jobs for a living. They take care of their families for a living. They make sure that their car and their house is well attended to for a living. That's what they do. The last thing they need is to have to worry about how many different tax code name things like there are this in there as far as investments. And that's why you need to talk to your professional and make sure that you are utilizing everything that you can to maximize the amount of money that you can make while minimizing the tax exposure that you have, if that's your goal.
Well, all this Roth stuff, there's enough technology out there that you can model this and see how this affects your situation over a really long period of time.
Right.
You know, we model this. We use 3 different pieces of software to model a Roth conversion. So if someone at home is just like, well, I watched this video on YouTube and I should do this or I shouldn't, that's pretty tough considering the professionals out there are utilizing multiple software situations or multiple types of software to figure out what your optimal outcome is going to be and whether this benefits you or not.
Right. That makes sense. And the other thing is that ultimately your eligibility is going to dictate the strategy that you have. Can you have a max? I mean, can you earn so much that you're not eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA, or is it? How does that work?
You can. You can. So there are income.
Am I in danger of that?
Phase. I'm not sure what your income is. So
Better get us a lot more views.
So there are income phase outs for direct contributions into a Roth. There is a strategy that's becoming more and more popular called the Backdoor Roth contribution. And just here's the gist of it. You put money first into a non-deductible pre-tax IRA, so you don't take a deduction on that, and then convert it into a Roth.
Okay.
And there's some other rules and things that dictate like your IRA balance and all those. But I think for even higher income earners, when you're really looking at it, it's hard to not be able to make an argument for at least some Roth in your overall picture. And if you think about a high income earner, they're probably really focused on getting as many tax deductions in the current year as possible. But I think for like an IRA, well, if you're under 50, it's $7,000. So then it's really more of a question is, can you forego, can you take that and not take any sort of tax deferral on it and then get it into a Roth?
Yeah.
And if you think that's going to benefit you long term, that could be a very good idea.
Right there, that's Elias Randall, also Roger Abel and Jonas Everett here with us. It's the Premier Investments in Wealth Management Financial Program. We're going to go over to Jonas now because it's something that I guess it's one of the fundamentals when you go to premieriwm.com, where you can, by the way, download the free copy of the guide, Rothification in Your Retirement. One of the things that you explain at premieriwm.com is this concept of bucket strategy. But that also applies to the quote, diversification of tax buckets, too. It's, again, a little bit more in the weeds. That's why you handle it, but you want people to know that you've got an understanding of what's going on.
Well, like Roger said, in a perfect world, you would want all of your money in a tax-free bucket, a Roth bucket of some kind, and then you wouldn't worry about paying taxes and taking distributions. Ultimately, people are going to have a combination of these tax buckets. You're going to have a taxable. You're going to have taxable accounts. You're going to have tax-free accounts. One of the strategies that you can do is diversify some of these tax buckets. You can, if you need income, you can pull from traditional accounts when you have a lower tax year, kind of like Roger's situation. He had a customer lose their job temporarily, get a different job.
Yeah.
If you are in a higher tax bracket, that's where the Roth distributions come in pretty handy, right? Because 0% in taxes is a pretty good tax rate to pay if you need income. So, and then ultimately you have the withdrawals based on your Social Security timing, tax brackets, market performance, things of that nature. We're in a market slump this year, so there's some opportunities to maybe convert to a Roth IRA, and there's some other opportunities available when the market goes down or when you're filing for Social Security.
Right. And this makes sense. Again, there's a lot of complications with these things. If you're trying to do this on your own, you want to make sure that you're not violating anything. That's why it's always good to have not only your wealth advisor involved, but if you've got a tax attorney or a tax advisor involved as well, Roger.
Yeah, you can make a mistake here that you'll pay for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it may not be beneficial for you. We probably have as many people will talk out of doing this as we do that we can convince them or tell them they should. And it's typically later in life. If somebody comes here at 62, 63, 67, and there's not this big legacy transfer that's going to happen. There's a lot of times it's challenging to make a whole lot of sense to do a Roth conversion, but there are times where it's just an absolute no-brainer and people should be doing it.
Yeah.
But that's why you get an advisor. We don't have to guess on any of this any longer. 25 years ago, you're kind of guessing. It was new. Nobody really knew, right? Only been out for maybe 10-ish years, 20 years ago, and Now there's enough data, there's enough software, there's enough ways to predict where things are going to go to really make a good decision whether this is for you or not. It's why we rolled out this Rothification guide, because there's been so much blanket information on this.
Yeah.
We want to help people who are looking at doing this make a really good decision that benefits them long term and not just the person that's telling them that they should do this.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Elias, some last thoughts with regard to everything we've been talking about here on Rothification, people's individual accounts.
Well, I think when you look at any sort of planning and executing any kind of strategies, it really depends on the outcome you want for yourself, right? And we talk a lot with our clients about, let's define what a successful outcome is for you and an optimal outcome is for you. And I think just in general, I think practically, a lot of times, and this is more practical experience than just like modeling scenarios and all that, a lot of times where I think it fits maybe best for people is their legacy planning to pass that asset on. And that clients that want that type of, they want legacy planning and things, a lot of times they kind of lean towards that because they can leave it as a tax-free asset. But there's so many moving parts, it's really hard to decide what you want to do. And it's also sometimes a decision of who's it going to benefit. Sometimes it may benefit your heirs more than it benefits you, but you got to weigh that in to see what's really important to you and what you want.
Yeah. How much of a legacy you want to leave for the future? You talked a little bit about that earlier, Jonas.
Absolutely. A lot of our customers don't want to create a tax burden for their kids. Their kids have better incomes than they ever had. And that's where the Roth IRA planning comes in, Doug.
Yeah.
Some of it's mental too. So I have some customers who the Roth conversion made all the sense in the world for them. They just couldn't grasp or grapple with having to pay all the tax now. Meaning, hey, do a $200,000 conversion because that's what's making sense for their family. Well, they're like, great. Why are we coming up with $20,000 or $25,000 and to pay taxes today when we could just defer them forever? You know, and eventually they just didn't do it. Their CPA told them to do it, and they're like, we just don't want to do it. Do we have to? I'm like, you don't have to do anything. It's your money.
Yeah.
And I assume they're comfortable with their kids paying the taxes on those accounts
Yeah,
when they inherit it.
They got 2 or 3 kids, and and their kids do okay, but it's not like their kids are high income earners. Right. So, and I think it's more the spouse just couldn't deal with having to write a big check to the IRS every year, even though they had it. Even though all the numbers made sense for them, just psychologically, she's like, do I have to do this? I looked at her, I said, no, you don't have to do this. Does it make sense? Yes, but it's your money.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want.
And it's so interesting because that's the whole thing is that when you work with your clients, it really comes down to them and their fingerprint on the whole thing. It's what they want. All these things are custom designed. The one-page Premier Vision document, these are designed individually for each client or a set of clients like they were in that case.
Well, we're really just kind of laying the groundwork for people, and they can execute the recommendations or not. And sometimes they don't want to, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt them. It's not massively to their detriment. You know, they're 70-some years old. Like, they don't have to do this. Their financial future is great. It's really just a legacy play for them.
Yeah. In the final minutes we have here in the program, I want to take a couple to talk a little bit about the Premier Investment Wealth Management one-page Premier Vision document and volatility in the market, because it's something that, I mean, it's just the buzzword. I mean, was it called the VIX? Is VIX? Is that what
the
it's
VIX.
called? VIX. Yeah, VIX. I've heard more of the word. I was like, what is it? Who's VIC? And what's VIC? What's the possessive VIX? You know, but it's this volatility index. I've heard more about that in the recent past than I think I ever have.
So yeah, it's a measure of volatility and probably people's kind of sentiment towards what they think will be happening in the market. But I think if you've done a good job of working through financial planning, and for our clients, right, we provide that the vision document, the one-page financial plan, which is really, it's a summary of the what we believe are the most important things to them that they want to address. And I think what it provides for people, if you have a financial plan you believe in, you have a withdrawal strategy that you believe in, I think it provides a lot of confidence in times of chaos. And I think we've done a really good job. And I feel like our clients have been confident through not just recent market swings, but for a long time.
Yeah, because it's not the first time they've happened, Jonas Everett, for you. Do you have any clients who call and say, yeah, they're talking about the VIX? I mean, is that something that they're talking about at all, or is that just so in the weeds that only if they sit on the TV channels and watch the crazy cash shows?
Well, they're talking about volatility a lot. And I think Premier does a great job resetting the time frames. I have my customers that call in, I have them get a pen and a paper out and have them write down just for fun 3 different years, 2018, 2020, and 2022. And I ask them just for fun, do you know what these years mean in the investment world? And usually 8 out of 10 say those are bummer years. Those are down years. I remember those. And I say, you did a great thing. You didn't call our office. You didn't request to go to cash. You didn't cut your flowers down.
Yeah.
This is another one of those.
Yeah.
And it resets the time frame for people, and they kind of say, I get it. I'm planting trees again. I'm not watching waffles cook in the microwave.
Dude, he's like the greeniest person in this room right now. That's just beautiful. It warms my heart. It's like Johnny Appleseed, brother. Talk to me about volatility, what you're seeing, what you're hearing in the marketplace, and even from your customers right now.
Well, I don't know when this show's going to air, but it's less today than it was about a month ago. Yeah. That's what I know about it. I don't know. I caution. I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Clients never bring up the VIX. They don't know what that is. But we do as advisors, and it kind of gives us an insight to what we may or may not be thinking about. I know one of the things that we kind of put a pause on when the VIX is really high, because all the VIX is what's the variance from the normal volatility of the market. Right. And when the VIX spikes, you run the risk of getting in and out of the market at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. And that's why we talk to people about not trying to time the market. But one of the things we did in April is we just stopped doing rollovers. We said we're not doing rollovers in April until the volatility went down. We watched the volatility index, because if somebody happened to do a rollover on April the 7th when the market was down 10.5%, the worst 2-day drop ever, they're going to be out of the market for 5 to 7 days by the time the rollover happens and the check gets to where it needs to go. They would have missed one of the greatest comebacks like we've seen. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, the VIX is X. Do we want to do this rollover or not? Well, now we've started it because volatility's been sucked out a little bit. We've seen, prices come back. And that's some of the stuff that people don't think about if they don't have an advisor. Like, well, I'm supposed to roll this over. Well, we're not trying to time the market, but let's not do it when the market's moving 500 or 1,000 points in the Dow every single time. And I know I said the Dow, so that means I'm an old advisor. Yeah. Okay, let's just call it the S&P 500 is moving 100. Here. It's a little gray. Now, I read that the other day. Someone said if anybody refers to the Dow, they're an old advisor. Don't listen to them.
Wow,
that's too
good.
Yeah,
what is TikTok? What do you think?
Oh, so I have a good story about that, because I actually had a rollover schedule, the phone call with the client on my calendar, first week of April, and he's an executive, so very busy. And we get on the phone, and I talked him through what you were just talking about, and I told him, I understand you're very busy, so if you just want to get this done, we can, but if I were you, I wouldn't do it right now. And he understood all those reasons, and which that's probably odd to hear. Your investment person is saying, yeah, we want your money. Of course we want more money to manage, right? That's what we do. But it just wasn't a great time. It wasn't in their best interest to do it at that time.
Premier Investments and Wealth Management at premieriwm.com. There's lots of resources for you out there, including the Rothification of your retirement portfolio. That's downloadable. There's plenty of other downloadable stuff there, but I encourage you to click on Get Started once you get to that landing page at premieriwm.com. Answer just a few questions. They will provide for you. It's called a one-page Premier Vision document, and you can use that. You can have them expand that into hundreds of pages so you can get down into the minutia and detail if you want that. And they'll provide a free, no-obligation appointment, sit down and walk you through what this could mean for your financial future. Are you ready for retirement, your kids' education, or whatever the dream that you have in the future that you need to finance? PremierIWM.com and the professionals at Premier Investments and Wealth Management, named to the Forbes 2025 Best in State folks, they are the ones to go to. Get in touch with them at premieriwm.com. Schedule right there, or you can call. The phone number is
800-383-6590.
For the new sheriff in town, Elias Randall, for Jonas Everett, and the big kahuna, Roger Abel, I'm Doug Wagner. We'll talk to you next time.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments in Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide specific individualized tax or legal advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal advisor. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Contributions to a traditional IRA may be tax-deductible in the contribution year, with current income tax due at withdrawal. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may result in a 10% IRS penalty tax in addition to current income tax. A Roth IRA offers tax deferral on any earnings in the account. Qualified withdrawals of earnings from the account are tax-free. Withdrawals of earnings prior to age 59.5 or prior to the account being open for 5 years, whichever is later, may result in a 10% IRS penalty tax. Limitations and restrictions may apply. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59.5 and has held their Roth IRA for at least 5 years. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to take a required minimum distribution, RMD, in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. A plan participant leaving an employer typically has 4 options and may engage in a combination of these options, each choice offering advantages and disadvantages. Those options include leave the money in their former employer's plan if permitted, roll over the assets to their new employer's plan if one is available, and rollovers are permitted, roll over to an IRA, or cash out the account value. Forbes' Best in State Wealth Management Teams ranking was developed by Shook Research and is based on in-person, virtual, and telephone due diligence meetings and a ranking algorithm that includes a measure of each team's best practices, client retention, industry experience, review of compliance records, firm nominations, and quantitative criteria, including assets under management and revenue generated for their firms. Investment performance is not a criterion because client objectives and risk tolerances vary, and advisors rarely have audited performance reports. Shook's research and rankings provide opinions intended to help investors choose the right financial advisor and team, and are not indicative of future performance or representative of any one client's experience. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Neither Forbes nor Shook Research receive compensation in exchange for placement on the ranking. For more information, please see www.shookresearch.com. Shook is a registered trademark of Shook Research, LLC.